Something that's different that I noticed this Indiana Jones film as opposed to the other Indiana Jones film. This really takes place all in one location in the movie. Right? We're all at this Pancake Palace.
And
then down in these catacombs, Pancake Palace, we're down in this Temple of Doom, which we never call it the Temple of Doom. It's just named it was actually supposed to be named the Temple of Death. And they're like, that's too much. But we've just been down inside this temple this whole time, and the rest of the movie's going to take place in this temple. And I'm used to Indiana Jones going location to location, solving puzzles, finding things out, getting clues.
Yep.
And the rest of this movie, we're going to be duking it out down in the Temple of Doom.
Doom duking.
The Temple of Doom looks a little bit like a Disneyland ride set. Like a lot of steam coming out of places.
Oh, 100%.
And like all the rocks are really rounded. And I don't know how any of the temple works. Like the trap door that opens, that's just like, what mechanism is in these rocks?
Bolaram, at 1 hour, 24 minutes and 53 seconds, he does this really glitchy exit from the scene. He goes from standing up to laying horizontally down in an instant.
Falls through a trap door.
Falls through like a pneumatic powered trap door with ADR maniacal laughing.
Dude, I thought I was crazy when I saw that. Like, he was just waiting just for someone to attack him, so he was like, ah!
Short round. Step on it.
Okie dokie, Dr. Jones. Hold on to your potato.
Ah, shut up, Willie.
What's poppin', corn dogs? Benny Noodle, welcome back. It's another episode of Just Play It. I'm one of your hosts. I am Jimmy Crack Corn. I am Captain Crunch. I am Captain Pop, the goddamn popcorn vendor on the street corner. It's me. And I can't be on the street corner without my street corn dog.
Whoa.
Which is my best friend, Mr. Nicholas the Jigless.
I'm your other co-host. I am Nick. I am that corn dog, aforementioned. I was a glizzy, and they stuck me in that golden brown batter. And here I am, the corn dog himself. Excited to be back with you, buddy, for another week of watching some movies.
And be back we are, because we will be dipping back into our franchise of the year, which is Indiana Jones. I'm excited to dip back into the second installment of the Spielberg, George Lucas creation.
Me too. Let me just stop right here and say we're going to reference a lot of stuff from our Raiders of the Lost Ark episode. A lot of stuff that's already been established as far as the characters, director, the way that they viewed this franchise. So if you haven't listened to that, stop this episode right now, go back and listen to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then come back and listen to this one, because it's going to give you a lot of insight into what we're talking about.
Yeah, go listen to that. So we'll see you in an hour and a half or however long it'll take you, and we'll be right here like nothing ever happened. Now, Nick, before we dive into the movie of the week, I want to start out first off, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm very much...
I feel like we never ask each other, hey, how you doing? We're just like, okay, time to talk about the Indian in the cupboard.
That's a fair point. We do all our talking usually before we press the record button, but it's nice for the listeners to know how we're doing. We're a little late past it at this point, but as of time of recording, I can say very much digging the time change, very much digging the spring weather coming into the air. It's nice out. The weekends, I get to spend more time outside, take the dog for a walk. I get off work. It's still light out. So I'm just in a good mood recently. Work's been kicking my butt. Life's been busy, but the sun's shining and I'm a happy guy. How about you?
Same. Can't complain. We do have actual real jobs. So I wish this was my full-time job, but it's not. This is a passion project.
Not even close.
It's something I feel happy and blessed to do. And I have a lovely wife and a fun, chaotic dog that we take care of.
I'm the exact opposite from you. I have a lovely dog and a fun, chaotic wife. So,
all right. Well, that's the yin and yang of Just Play It. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. No, Nick, I want to start out with something fun. Have you heard of Cinematrix?
I have not. Enlighten me, my friend.
All right, so I need you to Google Cinematrix. I'm going to do it at the same time. This is a daily movie quiz.
Okay.
So here's what we have. I've been kind of addicted to this in the recent weeks. I feel like it's fairly new. I can see this is they haven't done a lot so far, so this is kind of in its early stages. But basically, Vulture.com gives you this quiz for movies, and we're going to do this together, Nick. Let me explain the rules to you. And fans listening, you can play at home. There's 3 actors on the left-hand column, and there is 3 descriptions or categories up top. Kind of like a what's that gene? What's the gene table? Dominant and recessive genes, where they show you like
square.
You're so smart. It's kind of like a Punnett square. So it's like, hey,
this sorry to cut you off, but
no,
this is very similar. Sports have been doing this for a little while now. It's called the Immaculate Grid. The same concept.
Yep. This is the same concept. So basically you need to match up the category up top with the actor on the left. However, you can only guess one movie at a time. You can't use the same movie twice. The more obscure the movie is, it'll show you how much percentage of people made that guess. So you get a little bit higher.
Just like Immaculate Grid. Perfect.
This one's this is not my forte for today's given quiz for our recording. Nick, why don't you go ahead and read the top categories there? What do we have along the top row?
We have Oscar nominated film, director Tyler Perry, and character name in title.
Okay. So that gives me a hint that there's going to be a lot of Tyler Perry crossover. And I can tell you this, I probably haven't seen any Tyler Perry joints, unfortunately. How about you?
No, neither have I.
Okay. All right. For actors, we have Taraji P. Henson, Whoopi Goldberg, and Cicely Tyson. Now, I'll allow this. If I don't know who an actor is by name, I think it's okay to Google them just to see what they look like. So I'm gonna Google Cicely Tyson. Okay. All right. That doesn't really give me anything.
Now it makes sense.
Oh, really? Do you realize it?
No.
Okay. I think the easiest one for Taraji P. Henson, an Oscar-nominated film. I have an answer. Do you have an answer?
I think I have an answer. Yes.
Yeah. What's your answer?
I don't know if it won an Oscar, but I was gonna say Hidden Figures.
Oh, I was gonna say Hustle and Flow.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I'm gonna let you want to go with that one, or you want to go with?
Are we doing this together? Or are we going up against?
We're doing this together. We're doing this as a team effort here.
I think Hustle and Flow would be the better option.
Okay, let's punch in Hustle and Flow. All right, 17%. So that's pretty good. That's a low number there.
Here we go.
Okay, character name and title. Oh, for any of these. Oh well. I feel like Medea Goes to Prison is gonna be one of these.
I think there's gonna be a few Medeas.
I'm gonna click on the Cicely Tyson square and character name and title, and I'm just gonna. Okay, so there's there's a Medea family funeral. There's Boo 2, a Medea Halloween. There's Boo, a Medea Halloween. There's Medea's family reunion. There's Medea Goes to Jail. There's Medea's Witness Protection. There's Medea's Big Happy Family and a Medea Christmas, and also Tyler Perry's A Medea Homecoming, and there's like a Tyler Perry's Medea's Family Reunion - the play. So it kind of gives you a lot of answers here just by kind of punching in a keyword. So for Taraji P. Henson or Cicely Tyson, you want to just kind of do a shot in the dark on a Medea joint for character name in the title. Seems like we have a lot of options.
I'm trying to think of what our best option would be here, but
what was the first Medea movie?
Oh, that's a great question.
Oh crap! Let's just go with for Cicely Tyson.
Yes.
Type in Medea and scroll down to just do a Medea Christmas. I feel like that's a big family movie. All the grandmas are coming, you know?
Yep.
So on 3, we can hit guess when you're ready.
Hold on. Is this the play?
No, this is just a Medea Christmas. It's not the play.
There it is. A Medea's Christmas. All right.
Okay.
Ready?
1.
Let's give it a shot.
2, 3. Guess. Crap.
Oh.
We have limited guesses. There's 9 squares and we only have 9 guesses. So we got our first one correct and the last and our second one incorrect. So we have 7 guesses left.
Let's go to Whoopi. For Oscar nomination, I have 2. I have 2 easy ones. It's got to either be Ghost or it's got to be The Color Purple. And I think The Color Purple's probably the best option here.
Yeah, let's do Color Purple. And that might not get a huge percentage, but
but
when I played this in earlier iterations, it's not like Best Picture only. It could be sound, it could be costumes.
Any movie they were in that had an Oscar. So let's go with The Color Purple. There it is.
All right, 43%. Not bad, not bad. Character name and title. Okay, I feel like we can be safe with a Medea something for Taraji P. Henson or something, right?
For Taraji P. Henson, I'm not sure. Has she been... I don't know.
I'm just going to do Medea Goes to Jail for Taraji P. Henson, character name and a title. What do you think?
Yeah. Do you want to use that for character name and title or Tyler Perry director?
It doesn't matter because they're all Medea something. And he's directed all of them, I think. And they're all character name and the title.
Okay, so we're going with which Medea?
Goes to Jail.
All right.
For Taraji P. Henson, character name and a title. No!
Ooh, that's
crap.
tough.
I don't know this.
That's tough. I do know a Whoopi Goldberg, Tyler Perry movie.
Okay.
For sure. This would be Diary of a Mad Black Woman.
Not of a wimpy kid.
And I feel very confident in this one.
Okay, let's go ahead and guess.
All right.
3,
1,
2,
1, 3. Oh, man, that's tough. I thought she was in that one.
Maybe we could try that for Taraji P. Henson?
Or Cicely Tyson, who's a little older. You want to try it for Cicely Tyson?
I have it queued up for Taraji.
It's one of them.
You think so?
Yeah.
Which I'll trust you. You're the Tyler Perry expert.
Go with Cicely Tyson.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Hey.
Let's go, baby.
Back on the board. God, there's just so many Medeas. That
we haven't got any of the Medea. The Medeas have betrayed us so far.
There's just so many. I think that's the problem.
Okay, we have 6 panels left, but only 3 guesses left.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Like you just draw a blank.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm gonna try and cheat. I'm just gonna type in
already cheating.
Whoopi Goldberg. No, I thought maybe she had a biography or something. This is a hard one. You were very excited to show this to me, and you didn't realize it was going to be so Tyler Perry focused.
Today's one is kind of shitty because there was like a MCU one last week, and I was fucking killing it. And this one, I am shit in the bed. Okay, Taraji P. Henson, directed by Tyler Perry. I'm just gonna go with A Medea Family Funeral. You want to try it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it. We're just gonna burn through all of our Medea movies.
3, 2, 1, guess.
Oof.
Medea is betraying me right now. Oh no.
Taraji P. Henson.
What else has Tyler Perry done besides like Medea movies?
Oh, nothing.
He's like one of the most successful guys in Hollywood, and he's done nothing. 2 guesses left. Still 6 panels. We're not doing so good on this first one.
We just keep guessing Medea movies.
It's done really good so far.
Go with Medea's Family Reunion.
For which one?
I don't know. I'm staring at Cicely Tyson, trying to think of an Oscar movie.
Just pick a Medea movie for the character name. It's been doing us so well. Just pick anyone.
Just give me Cicely Tyson character name and Medea.
Witness Protection. Or Big Happy Family, because that'll cover a lot of bases for relatives.
Yeah, I like that. Let's go Big Family. We're trying to make the Tyler Perry movies make sense.
Okay, Medea's
I'm
Big
gonna
Happy
guess
Family. 3, 2, 1. F***ing A.
No.
Are you kidding?
I'm committed to Cicely Tyson's character name and title now. I'm going back to Medea, going back to the well.
Come on.
And we're going to go
I feel like Family Reunion was like the first one. I think that was the first one, right? The first Medea movie.
Then let's do it.
Let's guess, baby. 3, 2, 1, guess. Let's go!
Hey!
Let's go! We finally got
Ooh.
it. Yikes.
Ooh,
okay.
It's not good.
Our score.
I want
our
to look at the
score-
most popular answers. So we have Hidden Figure, Taraji P. Henson, Hidden Figures, Tyler Perry movie.
I can do bad all by myself.
Yep. And then character title and name, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Totally. I saw that one time in theaters. Could not tell you who was in that besides Brad Pitt.
Whoopi's most popular one was Ghost. So I had Ghost and The Color Purple. So that felt good about that. Tyler Perry movie For Colored Girls.
Never heard of it.
And then the character name entitled Jumpin' Jack Flash.
Also never heard of it.
For Cicely, her Oscar was for a movie called Help.
The Help.
Diary of a Mad Black Woman.
Which is one we guessed.
So we had that. And Medea's Family Reunion.
We had two of the most popular guesses.
So not half bad.
And then going on this last panel, it seems like everybody did the best on the Whoopi Goldberg Oscar-nominated movie category. And the one that people did the worst on was Cicely Tyson, character name and a title. So we actually got that one correct. So that kind of made up for, going under 50% there. What do you say?
Not half bad. I feel good about ourselves.
13% success rate for that one. And we got it because we know movies. Obviously, we don't know Tyler Perry movies, but, we know some movies.
I'm going to start doing this every day. That was fun.
It was fun, right? So save our record dates for the recording, though.
Will do.
Hey, speaking of movies, let's dive into the movie we are discussing this week. We are talking about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom from 1984.
If we recall from Raiders of the Lost Ark, this time they put in Indiana Jones' name in the title. So Raiders of the Lost Ark was not an quote-unquote Indiana Jones film. It is now becoming a franchise with a recognizable character. And so the name has now become Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom.
Happy 40th anniversary to the Temple of Doom. Coming up in May, technically. It turned 40 years old. Crazy. And here we are. This one is a little bit generally less favored. Some of it has to do with the slight racism and sexism. There's the whole white savior complex. We know it's there. We're not going to really dive into that too much. We're just going to acknowledge it on the front end and just review this movie for face value of what it is.
Yeah.
We'll touch upon it. We're not going to make it a main focal point, but we know it's there.
You could get away with some things here and there if you execute well. My dad, as a carpenter, said finished work covers a multitude of sins. If you execute really well, you can get away with some cringeworthy stuff and make it last a test of time.
You need to have a lot more going for you than going against you, pretty much.
Yeah, you need to get the benefit of the doubt.
So with that out of the way, this movie is directed by Steven Spielberg. He is back on the slate. Kathleen Kennedy, she back. And John Williams is on the track. Classic.
So that's a great start. If you're doing a sequel to a movie, go get your core people back.
Spielberg, George Lucas, Kathleen Kennedy, John Williams. And, speaking of, this movie stars Harrison Ford. You can't have Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford. This movie also stars Kate Capshaw and the first on-screen appearance of Ke Kwan.
Hey.
He has a crazy story. I don't know if you ever read up on this guy, but immigrated from... His parents were Chinese, but he was born in Vietnam, immigrated to America. Real just odds bet against him. He actually got this part because they were looking for a little kid that can do kind of martial arts stunt work, also spoke Chinese. His brother was actually auditioning, but he was actually helping his brother audition, and the producers took note of that and wanted him to read for the part, but he didn't actually really read English too well. He could speak it a little bit well, but he couldn't read it. But they just loved his charisma and personality that he actually ended up getting the part. So basically, he's the Tupac of the Juice.
Interesting.
That put Ke Kwan on a crazy trajectory into an Oscar win last year. He was a kid actor. He kind of was offered a lot of stereotypical roles, kind of subjected to you just need to play the Asian kid at school in high school films. So he kind of felt very dejected, did not have a lot of confidence going into auditions or trying out for movies because it was really just like, hey, you're trying out for the marginalized character that gets murdered in 5 minutes into the movie. So he kind of felt very dejected, didn't really feel like he belonged in the acting world. And then it was actually Crazy Rich Asians that kind of sparked him to chase after acting again. And he was thinking, oh, like we could be represented very well and on the forefront. We're not just the side character. That ended up getting him on Everything Everywhere All at Once, which of course he won an Oscar for. So it's really awesome to see. You'll love to see.
Good
it.
for him. You like seeing child actors continue their career, not fall into all the pitfalls a lot of child actors fall into.
That you brought that up with his Goonies cast members. So Chunk is actually he's his actor attorney. Chunk is Ke Kwan's acting attorney. Corey Feldman, as we all know, just got addicted to heroin and hit a lot of low points. He got clean, but you can definitely see, oh man, there's remnants of just all that heavy drug use. It's sad. But for Ke Kwan, he said, my parents were hella strict. It was all 9 of us strapped to a table. Some of us couldn't even fit at the table. We were all just like a tight unit. And they just said, don't do drugs. Don't do drugs. Like, stick with us. Be a good person. He was on the straight and narrow path.
Good for him.
Never set up to fail.
Good for families.
Dom Toretto would love this.
This movie was filmed on location in Sri Lanka. You don't see a lot of movies that have filmed in Sri Lanka. Kind of cool. This movie had an estimated budget of $28 million. Now we know that Raiders had an $18 million budget, brought in $389 million. Temple of Doom had $28 million, brought in $333 million. So a little less of a percentage return, but still, I mean, you're talking 12x your money. So great return on this movie.
Like you said, it's filmed in Sri Lanka. And in addition, that same studio in England that they filmed Raiders, when they need to do all the interior and soundstage work, they're just repeating the process.
Don't mess with success.
Just like Raiders, filming in Sri Lanka had its problems, had its logistical problems. There was a couple locations where typical crew trucks couldn't drive up the mountain, so they actually had to split up the crew trucks into 3 smaller cars for every big crew truck they would typically bring, and make multiple trips to bring all the stuff. And they would have like 100 cars on this mountain set. So very isolated filming locations. What you said about not a lot of movies filming in Sri Lanka, I think the most famous movie that filmed in Sri Lanka before this was The Bridge Over the River Kwai.
Okay.
And they filmed in a lot of very similar locations, like very close proximity to those where Bridge Over the River Kwai filmed.
Interesting.
Let's read this log line so we can dive into plot talk.
Let's do it.
In 1935, Indiana Jones is tasked by Indian villagers with reclaiming a rock stolen from them by a secret cult beneath the catacombs of an ancient palace.
Ooh.
Okay, let's see how Indy handles this situation in this sequel, but prequel, in Plot Talk. Plot Talk. So we open up, same thing as Raiders. We got the Paramount logo and we cross-dissolve that into a practical item in the movie. This one ends up being an image of a mountain on a big silver gong in a nightclub on a stage. I don't know if you noticed this. It was very noticeable to me. The opening credits are in red, like red font. I was thinking, okay, color red's going to play a big part here. You know, we're in Shanghai, China. Their flag is red. Later on, there's a lot of red demonic light coming from the underworld. So they're really trying to Darth Maul us with the vibes here.
I mean, the movie's called Temple of Doom. So we think that, you know, there's going to be some death. There's going to be some doom, right? We're
not called Temple of Tickles.
No,
that's for sure.
It's a whole different movie. Like you said, we dissolve into the credits. We dissolve into a female singer on stage in this nightclub
singing. A musical number.
Yeah, which I thought was a good touch, because there's some movies that will do a title track as the credits come in over, you know, not live action, let's say. But this movie has a whole musical number going on during the credits that is practical and a part of the film. And so I thought that was a nice touch to say, hey, we're not going to have necessarily an opening song or a title song play during the credits. We're going to have somebody singing and performing during this, and it segues right into the movie.
And this is Kate Capshaw and her character of Willie Scott singing in this song and dance number. And she actually did have to learn the lyrics to Anything Goes in Mandarin.
Apparently her dress was also too tight to sing. That dress was
and dance.
Tight.
Yeah. There's a couple funny anecdotes and fun facts about that dress. Apparently it was made with actual 1920s and 30s beads that the costume designer created. So they only had one dress. There's a scene later with an elephant and the dress is in the background. And apparently the elephant in real life started snacking on the dress. So with this one of one dress being snacked on, and they haven't shot this Shanghai scene yet, it caused some problems for some urgent rushed alterations and fixes. And they actually had to write on the insurance claim that the dress was eaten by an elephant.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. I'd love to see the insurance agent reading that.
Big James Bond vibes here in the beginning scene here, because after this song and dance number, we do see that this is 1935. So this is technically a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the only reason they did this is because they didn't want the Nazis to be the bad guys again. Simple as that.
Can't have Nazis be bad guys too many times.
So Indiana Jones does show up to this high roller table with these Chinese gangsters or hotshots. I don't know what they quite are, but he is dressed like Sean Connery's James Bond from Goldfinger, with the white tux and the red rose. Just fun fact that Sean Connery would go on to play his dad in the next movie. And we are also remember when Nick said, go listen to our Raiders of the Lost Ark episode? We brought up how Steven Spielberg looked at George Lucas and said, I want to do a James Bond style movie next. And Lucas said, how about an archaeologist? So there's a little bit of self-service to Spielberg. He kind of wanted to do a James Bond style intro. It's very Casino Royale. So it seems to be this seems to be doing an homage in two different ways. An homage to Sean Connery's Bond and a personal service to Spielberg of how he wanted to do a James Bond style movie.
I agree. I wrote it down in my notes. He's acting very Bond-esque. He's also acting out of character from the Indiana Jones that we met in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's sitting down at this table with, like you said, these Chinese, we'll say magnates or crime lords, whoever they are, crime boss, Lao She, and they're going through a negotiation. Indiana Jones has stolen the remains of
Narachi?
Yeah, Narachi sounds right. Who's the real life Khan of the later Jin dynasty, right? The last emperor of the last great dynasty. So right off the bat, for me, I'm saying, okay, Indiana Jones is doing, I steal something and I get something in return. This is not who we saw in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No.
In Raiders, he was very
highbrow about the treasure.
Yeah, very straight-laced. They belong in museums.
Sorry. Not treasure to Indy. It's artifacts and antiquities. Treasure is something that someone personally wants.
Right. And so in this case, he is sort of a treasure hunter for hire, for pay. We have no idea what he wants this diamond for, but surprise, surprise, he gets double-crossed.
What happens here is that there's this lazy Susan on the table, and they put the thing down and rotate it towards Indiana, and it's, what is it, money, coins or something?
Gold pieces, something.
It's your classic, show me the money and I'll show you this. So they show him coins, and then he says, nah, I want the diamond, man. So he rolls it back, and then at this part, Lao She's son on screen, but you don't see it technically, but you see him move. He just put a drink down on the lazy Susan as Lao She puts a bag which has the diamond in it, and they rotate it back, and all of a sudden a drink's there, and I was thinking, where'd this drink come from? So I rewound it and saw, oh, the son put that drink on there, and Indiana Jones, like a fool, takes the diamond out and says, sweet, here you go, here's the remains, and takes a sip of that drink. I was thinking, bro, you're Dr. Jones, you're smart, you just took a drink out of a stranger, you're in a hostile environment. This is obviously not friendly negotiation.
No. And this, I'd like to think this was almost a wink and a nod at the audience of Indiana Jones trying to be a James Bond. He kind of sits back in his chair, takes his drink, says a little quip.
Cool one-liner.
hits a one-liner, and then he kind of sips on his drink.
Wow.
He even kind of chokes and spits a little bit, like it almost like went down the wrong pipe kind of deal.
So this was Spielberg and Lucas. It was their version of "You're not that guy."
You're not that guy.
I'd like to think so.
Okay.
I'd like to think so because we'll see a lot in this movie. Like I mentioned earlier, he's not very Indiana Jones, at least not the Indiana Jones we know. I'd like to think that it was on purpose, so I'm going to try to view it through that lens.
I think that,
like you said,
no, I think you're correct. That makes that moment a lot better for me, actually, because like we discussed in Raiders, Indiana Jones is a little bumbly, fumbly, improvising on the spot. He's not calculated and precise and has everything figured out in a microsecond. He's putting on a front. It's out of character, but he's definitely putting on a character, but we don't know why.
right?
But his true self shows in this scene, like you just discussed. There's a whole antidote scene.
Again, this sort of is similar to a Bond scene where he's sitting at a table with a villain and the villain pulls out a gun under his napkin and James Bond kind of laughs and Indy kind of laughs, says, "Ha, you think I didn't see this coming?" He has a waiter who's one of his friends who also has a gun.
Inside job.
Yeah, you're like, oh, he's like, you think I wouldn't come here without a plan? His buddy just gets shot in the chest. And it just,
Capped.
it all falls apart. And so it's almost setting up like a James Bond scene with this mental showdown of two guys who are 5 steps ahead. And you realize Indy is no steps ahead. He's so many steps behind at this point in the game.
And all hell breaks loose when Indiana Jones kebabs a guy.
He does kebab a guy. He takes a flaming stick of meat and hurls it through a guy's chest, which, again, is a little out of character for Indy. Like we know he doesn't have a problem killing a man, but this was just impaling a guy with a flaming stick of meat is
Definitely style points to it.
off to a hot start.
Literally.
There's a lot of times in this film where Indy will make a move on a guy, whether swing something at him, punch him, when you think people should be reacting a little faster. But Indy, they're all laughing at him. Indy picks up this flaming stick of meat, and like guys are still just laughing, like ha 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 ha. And he just like rears back. Nobody's taking him seriously, and
They're calling his
just
bluff.
and he is not bluffing. He puts it right through the guy's chest, and they're like, "Oh!" And it's like, yeah.
Yep, we got this whole big chaotic scene in this Shanghai nightclub. There's a Wilhelm scream. I'm sure you heard it. It's when Indy's on a moving dolly cart and gets flung onto the band. And the antidote is scampering, scurrying around the ground. And so is the diamond. Willie Scott, who is Kate Capshaw. I don't think we actually shouted out her character name yet. She's seated at the table too. And I was thinking that this was an inside job and she was a associate of Dr. Jones.
Me too.
But no, she's just a complete stranger.
Me
she was
too.
just a complete stranger. I thought she was in on the bit, but she was not.
He holds her hostage with like a fork.
Yeah.
Like a serving fork into her ribs. I was like, oh, dang, Indy.
Puts a hole in that one of one dress, and she's pissed.
Yeah. And this, again, was where I was like, this is a different Indy. This is a different Indy than we're used to.
Well, he's matured and grown because this is a year prior to Raiders. This whole scene's going crazy. There's balloons falling down, and someone comes out with a Tommy gun. One of Lao She's guys comes out.
Yep.
Oh, I think it's his son because he's missing that finger from the night before. Again, Indiana Jones removed a finger, so he's like kind of crazy in this one. But his aim is off because he's missing a finger, and shoots the gong, which had the mountain on it. Gong starts rolling. Indiana Jones is running behind it like a moving shield. Grabs.
Was this
Willie
an
Scott.
homage to the boulder? The way it falls and hits and starts to roll, and then Indy starts running. I was like, is this Raidery?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I could see that. So he's running behind the shield, the gong, and he grabs Willie Scott. I don't know why. Why does he grab Willie Scott?
I don't know.
They end up running out of a window together, and the gong shatters it, and they jump out the window.
Yeah.
They do the classic landing on multiple awnings for a safe fall to the ground.
Just random awnings up 4 stories high.
Yeah.
You know, well, you got to rip through 2 of them and then bounce on the second to last one, onto the last one, onto the ground.
They really make those last 2 very strong and bouncy.
Yeah. Now, I wrote down, this whole thing goes on for a comically long time, and it's very campy, this whole interaction. So there's this diamond. We don't know whatever happens to this diamond, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think they picked it up.
No, it's on the ground, and then all of a sudden a bucket of ice gets spilled over. So it's lost in the ice. So hundreds of balloons come down from the ceiling. Don't know why. Don't know where they came from. But now there's balloons involved and this gong. But I was like, this is going on for a comically long time. And that's not the only time this happens in this movie.
Yeah, so they start chasing Indiana Jones, and I thought it was because he had the diamond, but I don't think he had the diamond or the remains.
No, they just wanted to kill him at this point.
So they bounce on the awnings, and they land in a convertible, and this is a short round. Kihei Kwan. He's in the mix. He's like 9 years old? 7, 8?
Something like that, yeah.
Small
9, 10,
child.
I'd say.
I want to point out his baseball cap, because for the longest time, I thought he was wearing a Yankees hat. My guy's a Giants fan. He's wearing a time period accurate 1935 New York Giants hat. So I was like, okay, short round. You're sick with it. We're Giants fans, by the way.
And so we take off in this car, and I wrote down, so first off, something fun. James, I see you have it written down here. We have an Easter egg.
Yep, first of a couple Star Wars Easter eggs here. So the club is called Club Obi-Wan.
Not so subtle at all.
First of 3 Star Wars Easter eggs I personally found.
I think I have one as well, but I'll have to double check it with you when we get there. And then from here on out, we essentially have just abducted Willie Scott, the singer. She got taken out of a window with Indiana Jones, landed in a car, and she is along for the ride. She has no say in this. She is just a part of the situation now.
Did Indiana Jones grab her and force her out of the window, or did they run together?
Based on how he treats her the rest of the movie, I think he stole her.
Okay, so he was trying to get a diamond. He walks away with a complaining lady. And this lady is Willie Scott. And Spielberg and Lucas did have the discussion of bringing Marion back. However, they wanted a new girl for each Indiana Jones film. So again,
very James Bond.
Very Bond-esque. Fun fact, Willie was actually named after Spielberg's dog, just how Indiana Jones was named after Lucas's dog.
Interesting.
And Short Round was named after the screenwriters Bill Hike and Gloria Katz's dog. I don't know who names their dog Short Round, but all the characters in this movie are named after dogs.
So short round is actually slang for a mortar round that falls short, like in war. So it's a military slang. So I don't know if maybe one of them was former military and like the name short round, but
they didn't look like it.
Indy calls him Shorty throughout the movie. So I like to refer to him as Shorty.
All right, cool. So they flee. We get our second Wilhelm scream in the drive-by here. Someone shoots somebody in the pursuing vehicle. They are transported to an airport via Short Round in his car and his 9-year-old driving abilities. And they are able to board a plane. And this opening does end in a very similar way as Raiders. The Raiders opening, he fled from a bunch of tribal members chasing him with blow darts and arrows. And Jock flies the seaplane off the river. And John Williams' score is swelling. Same exact energy here, except the score kind of falls into a brr, 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 brr when he closes the door because it says Lao She Enterprises or something. So the plane is owned by the guy chasing him.
Yeah, I don't understand why crime lords go through so much trouble to do the chase scene. Just let him get on the plane and then take him out there. If you know that's his plane he's going to get on and you own it.
Yeah. So Indiana Jones, Willie, and Short Round think they got away. And psych, it's Lao She's guys behind the sticks. And they end up dumping the fuel and sneaking past all three who are conveniently sleeping and jump out with parachutes. This is where I found my second Star Wars Easter egg here. We have, yet again, the Millennium Falcon sound effect when the engines are powering down mid-air. Just like we did with Jock's float plane in Raiders in the beginning opening scene.
Also, question I had here. Did Indy bring a change of clothes? Because he went from that white suit back to his leather jacket and hat.
Yes.
Okay, so he must have just had a change of clothes in the plane, because I was like, when did he get into this? When did he get back into the leather?
Well, maybe he was in the car. Maybe he had a bag in the car in Short Round's car.
Had a go bag?
Yeah, I think he had a go bag.
Okay, that'll explain it better for me, because I was very confused as to how he got back into his leather getup.
He had to.
So Indy thinking quick on his feet, and I actually love this because they have now done a Mythbusters on this. They grab the inflatable life raft, jump out of the plane, pop it midair, and they float down. And this, again, goes through another whole bit of shenanigans. So they land in the snowy mountain. The plane crashes into the side of the mountain in less than stellar CGI fashion. They go down the snowy hill. They sled down. And they go, oh, at least that's done. Nope. They come to a cliff, go off the cliff, go into the water, and now they're floating down the river. And they float down the river, and they end up finding an old Indian man. They're in India. So they flew from China over India. That's where they had to evacuate from. And here we are at this Indian village of Mayapur.
Mayapur? I don't know.
I had this question because they treat him like a god, and they're going to ask him to go on this quest. Like, do they know who Indiana Jones is? Because we know in Raiders, everybody's like Indiana Jones. I'm like, I was thinking to myself, this is a remote Indian village. There's no way they know who Indiana Jones is. Then we find out later they were just going to entrust their society to the next person who stumbled upon their village.
Yeah, more of the latter. And on top of that, their whole deal is that their nice little stone, which kept their village healthy and happy and safe, got stolen. And now they're all sad and poor and living in poor conditions, famine.
And the kids have disappeared.
And all the kids got kidnapped, so that's not good. They're looking at Indiana Jones as a sign and a savior because they were praying,
from Shiva.
We need someone to come back, be our savior. We can't do this without somebody. So they're looking at Indiana Jones, Willie Scott, and Short Round as the trifecta of the team that's going to save our village. So they don't necessarily know him, but they're ready to put him on game.
The village. So this starts a bit of a trend that I wasn't a fan of, and I know you hate, James, which is the over-explaining to the audience. And this happened a lot in this scene because Indiana speaks the language of the villagers. And so the villagers would say something to Indy, and then Indy would have to translate to Willie and Short Round. They said the stone was here. They say the stone has these magical powers. They say since the stone was taken, this happened. They believe XYZ. They want us to do. And I'm like, okay, we're doing a lot of explaining through translation.
Let me stop you right there. Comparing this to the Raiders scene with the government officials coming in and Indiana Jones is explaining the entire thing of the Ark of the Covenant and its whole deal and the city of Tanis and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Was that excusable, or is that the same? Does that have the same faults? Did you accept one over the other?
No, I think we gave Raiders some crap when we heard it, because remember, he opened up his book to the exact page and laid it all out right in front of us. I have to do this. I have to go see the professor. I have to see this. I have to do this. And we said, okay, you're just laying out all the steps. You know, the next 40 minutes of the movie didn't.
But I think I recall you said you liked that. I think you said you liked that part, that he just lays out the game plan so you know what to expect.
Maybe I was a little too harsh on this one. I was already a little.
Is it a been there, done that phenomenon? Like, I saw this in Raiders, here we go again.
Yes. And it just seemed a lot more obvious when the leader of the village said something and then Indy repeated it word for word to everyone. Also, fun fact about the leader of this Indian village, did not speak English at all. So when he is speaking English to Indy, he is just repeating what Spielberg is telling him to say. It'd be like if somebody told you to speak Spanish, you didn't, they said it, and then you had to pare it back 3 or 4 words at a time.
That's why there's those very prominent pauses. And when this gentleman, I call him the Indian Doc Brown, when Indian Doc Brown wipes his hand over his eyes when he says the word darkness, Spielberg did that. And this actor of Dr. Nayakara just pantomimes, does the same thing of what Spielberg is trying. You know, when you're explaining something and you kind of incorporate your hands to help sell the story or help sell the emotion. Mm-hmm. He is straight up copying Spielberg word for word and hand motion for hand motion.
So they do explain, though, that the stone has been taken. They know by who. It's evil forces from the nearby Pankot Palace.
Indy says, I need to go to Delhi. And this Doc Brown says, you need to go swing by Pankot Palace and do a quick grocery run for us and pick up our stone so that our village can thrive again.
Indy says, hey, that place has been abandoned for a long time. And that's when they tell him not anymore. So he says, oh, there's some nefarious forces at play here.
You know, he does agree to do so because he hypothesizes that the stone is one of the 5 Shankara stones given to the Hindu gods to help humanity fight evil. He's ready, and Short Round says, what is that? And Indiana Jones says, fortune and glory. But we're not quite sure. Is Indiana Jones going for that fortune and glory? Or is he gonna do the right thing at the end?
Right. Which, again, character break, because we would have never had that question about Indy in Raiders.
But he never, like, when he delivers that line, he doesn't have this envious look on his face or even his tone. He really just kind of says it matter of fact. This means fortune and glory. Maybe it means fortune and glory to someone else, someone in the wrong hands. He's just saying it out loud, not necessarily, I want fortune and glory, but what does that mean?
Shorty asks him, why would somebody steal it? And he looks longingly into the night and goes, fortune and glory.
Yeah, not necessarily wanting it, but just knowing that people would go after this thing just for that, when it means so much to this village. It's literally their livelihood. So they're set up to travel to the palace. They are put on elephants. And I want to just shout out a behind the scenes logistic here. Another location logistic. Robert Watts shouted out him in the Raiders podcast. I saw this whole making of, like, behind the scenes footage back in the day. So a young Robert Watts is explaining to the camera that the location shots were limited to the speed of the elephants. And working in the industry, no stranger to this, decisions are made on a last minute basis. You can spend up to 10 p.m. writing a scene that you're going to shoot the next day. You can make last minute decisions at 11:30 and your call time's 8 a.m. for the entire crew of where you're supposed to report to. In one instance, Robert Watts says that a location was decided on last minute the night prior, and the elephants had come in at 6 a.m., but it took them 6 hours to walk to the location versus a crew member just driving to the location in a car, and it would only take them 25 minutes.
Wow, that's slow.
Just like Raiders, we're getting hit with location-based logistical problems because you're not putting the elephants aren't hopping in a van saying, hey, see you there for our 7 a.m. shoot time. No, they're big ass elephants. So they're just walking down the street to their reporting location. I thought that was funny. I also thought it was funny how the elephants had handlers.
Yeah.
Like it was a tour guide, because Indiana Jones, Short Round, and Willie Scott are up on elephants, but there's people just walking on the ground next to them, like on a leash. Doesn't seem like it was a crazy journey if people could just walk the route, you know?
Yeah, it's not like they were carrying cargo really either.
It was a very slow way of traveling.
So we get to the palace, and they are welcomed by, there's a group of people living there.
That seemed fine.
There's a whole, almost
fine.
a village. Yeah, there wasn't evil looking.
Indiana Jones was saying, wasn't Pankot Palace abandoned years ago? Isn't it just a desolate place and it's in ruins? No, it's good. It's like
thriving.
It's like a drug lord's Miami mansion with the way these guys are
very
dripped out,
Scarfacey,
living good, eating good, as we'll see.
Yeah, and they're going to stay the night as guests, and they are part of a large banquet hosted by the palace's young Maharaja.
Yep.
We also get introduced to this character who I believed was going to be our big baddie, Shatar, because he's wearing a very bad guy coat. Almost Nazi-esque coat.
Well, Bond-esque.
Overcoat with the high collar, the 2 buttons, like very clean cut. I was like, this guy's
corrupt military looking guy.
Very much so. Large banquet, a lot of kind of gag laughs going on at this banquet. The people of the Pankot Palace are eating stuff that Willie finds disgusting, whether it's beetles, snake, monkey brains get served.
When I watched this a couple years ago for the very first time, the scene just took me out of it. I thought this was way over the top with the and also where I kind of picked up on the subtle racism and hey, I can see why India didn't want to have them shoot here because they portrayed Indian folks eating bugs and snakes and literal monkey brains with like the monkey's head on a severed head on a plate and the top like a pumpkin, like a carving a pumpkin. And they just start spooning the chilled monkey brains. And Willie Scott sitting next to a super overweight guy who's describing all the quote unquote delicacies. I just thought it was super cornball and cringy.
To be fair, monkey brains are considered a delicacy in a lot of countries. Like this isn't made up. Monkey brains are eaten a lot. Still.
But snakes and bugs and soups with human eyeballs in it.
The soup with human eyeballs was way over the top. But you're right. It is very stereotypical. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying they took a lot of, and I don't know if monkey brains are eaten in India. I know China is a big one, and I think there's places in Africa. So it looks like
are they served in the monkey's head? Like that's like taxidermied. Yes. They are?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, they'll be served in the monkey's head, like fresh almost. It's a thing. It's not a good thing.
I feel like it was a little bit too over the top with the amount of grotesque food hitting the table.
I think they took examples of quote unquote gross foods from everywhere.
They took 2% truth and just blew it up in the scene.
Well, they took right. What's the phrase? You got to tell just enough of the truth to make it believable. And so they took these practices that may be practiced all over the world and they put it all into this one scene because 1984 audiences don't know any better. They don't know what Indian villages in 1935 were doing.
I'm going to pin this and bring it up in the scene we're about to hit coming up here soon.
Yeah.
That whole phenomenon.
What comes next at night? Willie gets dressed up, gets adorned in jewels and everything, and Indy thinks to himself, "Oh, she's hot." And so this is just going to trigger our quote unquote love story, if you will. It's more of a lust story. He goes to Willie's room and like right off the bat, she's been hating him this whole time. He can't stand her, and all of a sudden they have this whole awkward sexual tension. What do you wear to bed? Just the jewels, nothing else. It's like, what are we doing here?
He gives her an apple and then she gets all horny.
Yeah.
She had to eat eyeball soup at the dinner.
Apple a day. Can't keep the Indy away.
Can't keep the D away. So, but they make it a point to, they get all romantic, but they make it a point not to bang because they're both of them are not that easy.
Indy gets a little too egotistical. He's like, she's like, "I'll make it the best night ever." And he goes, well, I'll tell you if that's true in the morning. He's like, "Are you sure?" It's like, oh, that turns you off after everything else. That turns, okay.
So they're too stubborn. They separate. They go into each other's rooms. They're waiting for each other to make a move. But Indiana Jones is suddenly attacked by an assassin that is in his hotel room of this palace. And during this struggle, Harrison Ford, again, got injured on the set of an Indiana Jones movie. Shocker. He actually herniated his back while filming the scene. It's when the guy comes up and starts choking him from behind and he flips him over his back. That's when something just like popped in his back. The next day, he was like immobilized. He could not move.
Herniated discs are no joke.
And George Lucas was in the United States. Spielberg is like, "Hey, Harrison Ford is not doing too well. What do we do?" George Lucas flew all the way to Sri Lanka. And then they made a group decision. They flew Harrison Ford all the way back to LA, ASAP Rocky, for a procedure, and then just sent him right back to Asia to continue filming. Sports and movies, I tell you, they'll spend a crazy amount of money to just get a guy in surgery the next fucking day. You and me as real people, I remember a story you told me when you needed a surgery done. And you thought, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do an MRI on Monday and I'll probably get in surgery on Friday. And then I've had the same thing. Found out they don't treat us regular people like that. It's like, yeah, we'll fit you in 2 months. We'll
schedule out a couple months. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like sports and movies, just like get this guy fixed now by any means necessary.
Goes into surgery that night if you're an important person.
Crazy, dude.
Like they will you off the set or they will you off the field. They throw you on a gurney and they put you right into the operating room. It's crazy.
So Harrison Ford didn't make it out of the scene. Indiana Jones does, and he actually ends up killing this fool. And I think it was inadvertent. because he has like the whip around his neck and it gets caught on the ceiling fan.
Yeah, I'm not sure. This is actually the first time we see the whip up to this point in the movie, where Short Round sees it and he goes, "Indy, your whip!" He throws him his whip, gets the guy around the neck, and then, it gets caught up in a ceiling fan. And I see you wrote it down here too. Like, that's a hell of a ceiling fan.
So the ceiling fan tangles the whip and is able to hoist this guy up and choke him out. So this is a strong fucking ceiling fan.
Yeah, it's wild.
This ceiling fan is built different and no one knows what to say about it.
So they're freaking out. Indy runs back into Willie's room and Willie's like, "Oh, he's back for me. He wants this."
Oh yeah.
But he's all freaking out. He's looking for another assassin. There's a little sexual comedy where he's like looking around the room. He puts his hands on the boobs of a statue and she's like, "I'm right here, you know." I'm like, all right.
Dude, this is that nerd humor from Spielberg and Lucas. Mostly Spielberg. They're like, wouldn't this be funny? Like a very young Spielberg just having a goofy ass time.
So they find these underground tunnels in the palace. There's actually this scene. They're walking and Short Round goes, "The floor feels like fortune cookies." I was like, oh, come on. They look down with the match and it's a bunch of bugs. Now, two things that I found out about this. A, fortune cookies are like an American thing.
Oh, yeah.
They're not
completely American.
And two, fortune cookies didn't come around until like the 40s, I think.
Uh-oh.
So
continuity error.
Here's a goof on you guys, and you just needed to throw it in to make the little Chinese boy go, "Oh, fortune cookies." So, you'd be better.
We're on thin ice with the Indians. Let's not offend the Chinese. With Short Round's doing a pretty good job not being like a stereotype. He's kind of being like a useful little sidekick, but we don't need to throw in the fortune cookie line. It's a little sketch.
The fortune cookie thing. They do end up entering a room. There's a classic Indiana Jones trap. Ceiling starts coming down.
It's like the trash compactor in A New Hope.
That's a good call out, actually.
I mean, it's like, Harrison Ford, he's there. George Lucas. It's kind of like a callback to a Star Wars, not a reference, but just very similar. This is your classic spike traps come out. They hit a couple buttons and the doors close, the ceiling starts collapsing. I think they hit a different button, then the spikes come out and they're calling for Willie and they're asking for her to come through. And this whole time she's been a fat ass damsel in distress. Like, "Oh, I broke a nail. Oh, I hate the outside." So we're thinking she's going into this bug chamber and she's going to hate it. And it's going to be all screams and shaking bugs off her body. But she's got to pull through and save Indiana Jones and Short Round from the ceiling trap. So she does. She ends up saving the day. And what's funny about this scene is that she wants to get in. She wants to escape the bug chamber. And Short Round and Indiana Jones want to go back into the bug chamber because they're like, "We're going to die." There's even like a Shining moment when he's like looking through a hole and Indiana Jones is
a legitimate
like,
jump scare.
"We're gonna die here." And it's very reminiscent of "Here's Johnny."
There's a small jump scare. He's like, "Put your hand in the hole and look for a lever." And she stares down the hole and there's nothing there. And then Indiana Jones' hand shoots out. He's like, "Go to the other hole." And I was like, whoa, that actually kind of got me. Thinking about it now, why was that booby trap room there?
Just to have a booby trap room, man.
I guess so.
When you have an elaborate lair, you need false tunnels and whatnot. Secret passages, and you need to know the code to get through. And then if not only do you not want someone to get in, but you don't want them to know about it after they discover it. So you got to kill them with a collapsing ceiling. As we saw, there's many skulls on those spikes. On the spikes specifically, like a lot of people volunteered to just go underneath the spike and have their skull
speared through the skull. True, yeah.
And the best part about this scene is that it wraps up with Willie Scott hitting the same fucking button as Short Round did, and it has to happen again, except this time they all make it a point to get out of there.
Indy does his trademark, loses my hat, and as the door is about to close, he reaches out, grabs his hat, saves his hat. They continue through the tunnels, and we stumble upon a human sacrifice scene.
Yeah, they discover thuggy cultists worshiping the god Kali and conducting that human sacrifice. Earlier at the dinner scene, they did name drop the Thuggee cult. For reference for you listeners, Thuggee cult, also known as the Thugs of India, and their practice was actually Thuggee. So technically they're not called Thuggies. They should be called simply Thugs. It'd be kind of calling like Christians Christianities. So the thing they practice is Thuggee, and they are known as Thugs. So the origin of the term thug is from an NPR article, What a Thug's Life Looked Like in the 19th Century India. The Thuggee cult were believed to be a professional organization of criminals and assassins who reportedly had robbed and murdered thousands of travelers in India. And they were widely portrayed as born criminals who worshipped Kali, the Hindu goddess of death and destruction. And that's pretty much where the similarities end with the real life Thuggee cult and this movie, because this movie blows it way out of proportion with their practices. They are satanic.
No.
They are death worshiping. They are devil worshiping. They are doing human sacrifices. There's like Aztec heart ripping out stuff. There's Hawaiian volcanic human sacrifice. The voodoo religion in Western cinema and culture is perceived as witchcraft and dark magic, and it's very commonly misrepresented, but just very stereotypical, like voodoo elements, and it's just a hodgepodge of an skewed POV of all these like terrible things or dark or crazy things that happen in a multitude of cultures in a fucked up AMF cocktail of the Thuggies of the Temple of Doom.
So you're in this temple in India, you're in this jungle, and you go down these secret passages, maybe, I don't know how far down you go, but all of a sudden you get to this place with a molten lava pit. I'm like, good, what ground are you on where there's just this molten lava pit down here?
Is this volcano again? Where's Tommy Lee Jones?
It's what it felt like. So yeah, we witnessed this human sacrifice. We do meet Mola Ram, and he is actually, let me go back a little bit. After we escaped the squishy room, at this point, this is something I'm starting to do now when I watch these movies that we review. This marked exactly the halfway point in the movie. And so the first half of the movie, I'm sitting here and I'm going, okay, Indy's a little different. I don't quite know what's going on. Don't have a lot of backstory. Not quite sure what we're getting into yet. Don't know who our main baddie is, or really who.
We meet him at the halfway mark.
Little past the halfway mark is when we finally see what's going on.
Because you thought it was Chittar. You thought he was going to be the baddie because you're meeting him in the first act. But here we are in Act 2, right smack dab in the middle of the movie, and we're finally getting to Mola Ram. And he does rip a guy's heart out with his bare fucking hands.
But doesn't like rip his chest open. He just reaches in, pulls it out. The dude's still alive, but and his chest closes back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're never explained what this power is. He just takes his heart out, dumps him down into this pit that looked like the Spawn version of Hellfire.
It looked like a lava tornado.
Yeah.
In the ground.
I wasn't quite sure. They actually built a dummy, like an animatronic dummy almost, that convulsed as it was being let down to show the panic. And Spielberg said that's a little too disturbing. So they added more fire effects to block,
just like Paul Freeman in Raiders and the PG versus rated R and the PG-13 Tango. It was the same problem. Mm-hmm. But when he dips this guy in lava, his heart he's holding just combusts into flames.
We have no idea what this ritual is. We have no idea what the god Kali wants or what this cult is capable of. We just know what we saw. And we do see that they have the Shankara stones.
And then after they do this human sacrifice, they're like, all right, let's take lunch. And they all walk out of the room, giving Indiana Jones plenty of time and just open field to go in there and swipe the stones, check them out. He does pick up one of the stones. We do get that god light again from Raiders when he picked up the idol in the opening act. Very famous lighting technique that we see in a lot of Spielberg movies. The Shankara stones, we've discovered they actually glow And there are diamonds inside of them, is what
and Willie's very excited about that.
Willie loves
All
that.
of a sudden, she's like,
ooh,
she's like, diamonds?
Because homeboy rips the dude's heart out, and she freaks out and shuts her eyes, runs around the corner, and Short Round says, "How are they glowing, Dr. Jones?" And Indiana says, "They glow from the diamonds inside them." And Willie's like, "Diamonds? What? Where?" And then comes running back up to the scene.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I thought you had a redemption moment when you saved Indy and them, but you did not.
You're superficial.
Now, tell me if you heard what I heard. I thought that I heard some Star Wars music when he picks up the stone and looks at it.
What'd you hear?
We'll have to go back and listen to it. I could actually probably do it right now if you wanted me to.
Hit me.
All right, let's see if you hear it. Is it like, bah, 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 bah. It was just very Star Wars-esque to me.
Is it the music or the vocals? Because I can only really hear the vocals on Riverside.
It's the music and the vocals. It's a little bit of both. It's just very, and again, surprise, surprise, it's very John Williams-esque. So Indy strolls down, picks it up, gets distracted by the sound of screams, cries, and goes over to a ledge, looks down, and sees a bunch of child laborers slaving away in the mines.
Because the villagers said all their children were kidnapped.
Again, I'm confused on the geography. You're right next to a big fiery lava pit, and then you walk over here and you look down. There's a bunch of children in the mines, like 30 feet below you. I'm like, this isn't making sense. I'm trying to put this all together. There's magma and lava tubes over here. There's child laborers over here.
Makes no sense.
He sees one of these children getting whipped, and Indy will not stand for this. So he gives away his position and decides that he is going to pick up a rock and huck it.
Just throw it
at the guard's
just throw
head.
It at that guy.
Yeah, and instead of hiding after he throws the rock, he just stares dumbfoundedly. So he gets captured.
Along with Willie and Short Round.
Yeah, everybody's captured. You can only be down in this murder cult temple for so long until you're about to get taken.
So the thuggy high priest, Mola Ram, he ends up forcing Indiana Jones to drink I think it's blood, right?
Yeah, it's blood. Because another kid says, "Don't drink the blood. Don't drink the blood. It'll make you like them."
He spits it out, but then they just force feed it down this fool's throat, and this actually puts him into a trance-like state, and they're gonna prep Willie Scott for human sacrifice. So they cue that up. Indiana Jones is underneath this trance, this curse spell. They got Willie in the same cage as the other poor soul that got dipped into lava, and they ripped that guy's heart out. Why didn't they rip out Willie's heart?
So I thought I was crazy for noticing this. I rewound it a few times because I was expecting them to, like, you rip out the heart and then you do the sacrifice. That's the order of operations here. That's not the case. They did not rip her heart out, and I was very confused by it. I thought I missed something.
Did they hit their heart quota for the day already? And this was just for funsies, as you would say.
Yeah, maybe Kali didn't require any more hearts.
We're good.
Yeah, they actually force Indy to be the one to tie her into this cage and basically doom her to this fiery pit of lava tornado.
Yeah, meanwhile, Short Round is put to work in the tunnels, like the rest of the children in this fucked up child labor mines next to the volcano. But he escapes because he's resourceful and he's a son of a gun, and ends up interrupting the sacrifice by freeing Indiana Jones from his trance. And he does this by just sticking a lit torch into his side, and that just breaks the curse.
Yeah, I was a little confused.
Well, he ends up getting like bitch slapped by Indiana Jones. It's very heartbreaking because he's like, "Indiana Jones, wake up!" And then he smacks Short Round, and you're like, "Oh my god, child abusement." Short Round's like, "Oh my god," he's doing it with tears in his eyes, and he says, "Indy, I love you," and then stabs him with a lit fire torch, and this breaks the spell or the trance.
Yeah, I wasn't sure at this point if the breaking of the trance was the fire torch or the I love you.
It was definitely the fire.
We find out later it is no doubt the fire.
As we'll see later.
I was like, oh, is it love? No.
Nope.
No,
it's the torch.
It's fire.
Just torch to the rib cage. That's what did it.
Yes.
So then in turn, Indiana Jones rescues Willie. Now, I gotta say, this is where I picked up my third Star Wars reference. Now, I know you were saying something about the score, but when they open
I'll admit the score might just be John Williams doing his thing, and I just heard a little bit of inspiration from Star Wars. Maybe I just melded two things together, but anyway, go on.
So I don't know if you caught this, but when they open the trap doors down to the lava cyclone, there's 100% a lightsaber sound effect when they open the doors. There's like,
I did not catch this.
Really?
Yeah.
A video I watched didn't even mention it. Is this a Just Play It exclusive? Pull that scene up. We'll watch it right now. Go back. Right there.
Oh,
You hear it?
that was definitely a lightsaber sound.
100%, right? Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt. Lightsaber sound.
So there's a lightsaber sound. That was the third Star Wars Easter egg I found in this movie. So Lucasfilms, man, they love throwing that in there.
Great catch.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now,
So
you.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so there's this whole scuffle at the sacrifice scene. Short Round breaks the trance of Indiana Jones. There's a whole fight scene with a bunch of the thugs. And Bolaram, at 1 hour, 24 minutes and 53 seconds, he does this really glitchy exit from the scene. I don't know if this caught your attention, but he goes from standing up to laying horizontally down in an instant.
And falls through a trap door.
Falls through like a pneumatic powered trap door with ADR maniacal laughing.
Dude, I thought I was crazy when I saw that.
And it just read so glitchy because Indiana Jones is running up to him and Bolaram looks at Indiana Jones like, oh, you think you're going to get me? And then the next cut, he's laying on the ground and just like rolls into a door.
Kind of yeets on down, yeah. And it's awkwardly close to the base of that statue. He's like hugged up against it and then just kind of like gets dropped down.
Yeah. The subterranean story continues in the mines set piece. There's a whole big
children yearn
fight
for the
sequence
mines.
in the mines because Indiana Jones, he gets in a fight with that big ass guy that he threw a rock at.
Mm-hmm.
And Shorty. So there's this whole stereotypical voodoo doll that is introduced earlier in the movie. And even it's so ridiculous because they dressed it up like a little Indiana Jones doll. Like he's got a little hat and a little jacket.
Yeah.
And the Maharaja is the little boy king, the 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid king of this cult. They made an Indiana Jones doll and he stabs it with a needle earlier in the movie. And Indiana Jones has a back spasm and is in a bunch of pain. And the kid whips it out during this mine scene fight when he's fighting the big ass dude and starts stabbing him with the needle. Very just textbook, show me a voodoo doll and what a bad guy would do to the voodoo doll. Just stab it with a needle, just making Indiana Jones suffer. So Short Round gets into a scuffle with the Maharaja and ends up freeing him from his trance by also stabbing him with fire. So
this is when I knew it was
Maharaja becomes like a sweet little kid.
If only Indiana Jones had his flaming shish kebabs.
Oh yeah.
Then he could have freed everybody.
That was foreshadowing.
Yeah, he was throwing fire stakes through people before it was cool.
That was
in this movie.
That was a foreshadowing move by Indy.
And then the kid turns out really nice. He's like, "Oh wow, sorry. If you want to leave, take the second cave on your left."
It's like take a left. Okay. It's like, oh, okay, it was that easy. Indiana Jones is fighting this absolute unit on a conveyor belt. I gotta say, welcome back, Pat Roach. This is the big ass guy that he fought on the airstrip in Raiders.
Is it?
He is dressed up in brown face.
Checks out.
I didn't know if it was brown face or if he was like super tan white guy just down for the cause. But I'm pretty sure he was in brown face.
You're also down in the mines, so maybe you have dust and soot all over your face. So maybe you're just grimy and dirty down there, and a lot of lava and ash being spilled up from the ground and the death pit. You know, maybe benefit of the doubt there.
Pat Roach is back. I want to bring up Harrison Ford's injury again. When he went back to go to get a procedure done, it was going to take him multiple weeks to get back in shape. So Spielberg actually shot this fight with the stunt double Vic Armstrong for 3 weeks with Pat Roach. And just like Raiders, this was not storyboarded. This was just an improvised fight during shooting. So on the airplane fight, Spielberg thought, oh, it'd be cool if we did this. Oh, well, if the plane spins around, oh, like a mousetrap, the wing knocks into the gas tanker and then it lights on fire. Same phenomenon here, just kind of making it up as you go. And then they just inserted the close-ups of Harrison Ford when he was back.
Making do with what you got.
They do defeat the thuggy cult in the mines. They make this grand mine cart escape. And I didn't actually see when they got the stones, but apparently they escape with the stones.
I would like to say this minecart scene went a little long for me. I saw some cool stuff about it. It was a mix between real life, obviously when the actors were close up, and then miniatures. And you could really tell when it was miniatures. There was a few
I didn't even need to pause it. I didn't even need to pause it. I just thought that looks like a dummy. And then I learned, oh, it was tiny little miniatures. That was stop motion.
When they're going around that sharp curve and the cart is like at a 45-degree angle, you're like, okay.
And they're just straight up and down.
But they had a single track around the stage they were doing it on, and then they would just change the angle and the lighting to make it look like a new part of the tunnel. I thought that was pretty cool. It's a pretty innovative way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Innovative. Indiana Jones does stop the minecart with his bare boots as brakes. Oh. I got problems for that. But they are chased out from this flooding water. So we got water in the mix in these underground mines next to lava. So what's going on with these mines?
They bust out of the side of a rock cliff, and the rocks look a little foam-like. It's a little Romancing the Stone-esque, yeah. Like cliffside. The water busts out of there, and it's like this maybe 80 to 100-foot drop-off down into a river. And I'm like, on the level you are at right now, if you go straight back, because you didn't take the minecart uphill. That's not how gravity works. So you may have even gone downhill. So above you in these caves, there's magma. Yet you're suspended 100 feet up, and there's a river. So like the geography is very confusing to me about where they're at. Maybe it's just a magic temple of doom with lava. But I was trying to track this. I'm like, where are you?
Impressive sets, but they don't make sense.
No.
We get into the real world and to some sunlight for the first fucking time in over an hour. We do have a cool callback because there's these two thugs with swords, and we're getting flashbacks to Raiders when we had that big guy in the Cairo street with his sword, and Indy just whips out a gun and shoots him. He wants to do the same move here. However, his handgun is not on his side, and he has to resort to his whip and kind of do melee hand-to-hand combat. Takes out these two fools, starts to kind of chase after them. And then we get a classic, again, not like a Star Wars reference really, but like kind of reminded me of when Han Solo chased a couple stormtroopers and then ran into a room where there was like 30 of them. And then they chased him back the other way. Same thing happens here. A bunch of thugs chase Indiana Jones one way, end up bringing everybody to a bridge, this wooden roped bridge that is over this river that's hundreds of feet down. Indiana Jones is caught in the middle of it, and we have a classic standoff here. Willie, short round, Indy's there, and they're closing in on them. Now, I do want to say something about this bridge. Luckily for production, there just happened to be some engineers from a British company who were currently building a dam outside the nearby town of Kandy in Sri Lanka where they were filming. And they commissioned these guys to actually build this bridge for them. So this bridge was not existing before this movie. They built it for the movie.
So Indy's getting closed in on. He has a sword at this point in the game. And he says to himself, all right, like it's I'm taking y'all to hell. And he takes his sword and just clean cuts his way through one of the rope handrails on one side. And this splits the bridge in half.
I didn't understand this.
No.
He takes one hack at the handrail and the entire bridge just splits completely.
Yeah, that bridge is not constructed well if that is what's going to take it down.
Of course, our heroes are fine. They're hanging on. And Mola Ram. He's a fit, athletic guy who can rip your heart out. But a bunch of other cultists actually fall to their death. Something I did think was cool. They did create dummies, like you were saying with the guy they dipped in the lava.
Mm-hmm.
They produced dummies with practical limb flailing abilities. When they blew up this bridge, they actually had 8 cameras going at the same time. Because I thought someone died in this shot.
Dude,
when
some violent...
that guy hits the rock wall. Well, it wasn't a guy, it was a dummy. But it was actually really cool. They did it in one shot. They really only had one shot. The bridge blows up. They have these dummies flailing their arms and legs. And one of the dummies just smacks the rock wall on his way down. And I thought, wow, give that stuntman a raise. But it was dummies. I thought that was some nice movie magic there.
I agree. It looked pretty good.
And of course, they fall into a crocodile-infested water. That's down below. Alligator, technically.
Yeah, there's gators down there because we all know that gators absolutely love to be in moving water rivers. They don't like the still swampy lands. Also, these gators are they're Florida gators.
Yeah, so this whole scene, the bridge was built in Sri Lanka, and that the blowing it up was filmed there. The close-ups of the next part of the scene where our heroes are dangling on a broken bridge like a ladder, that was on the studio backlot in England. And these random gators were just filmed in Florida. So 3 different continents going to work for this one scene.
A little bit more Romancing the Stone vibes with the gators.
The snappers.
Meanwhile, our heroes, Willie, Indy, and Short Round, are hanging onto this bridge. It's your classic wooden slat bridge, hanging in half down the side of a cliff. You have to climb up. Mole Ram is there as well. And here's our showdown with Mole Ram and Indy. Mole Ram goes to put his hand on Indy's
he goes
chest.
For a signature move to like rip out the heart. So I thought you had to be in the Temple of Doom to do this. Apparently Mole Ram can just do this anywhere. This is his party trick.
Yeah, and so he starts chanting, Cholera, Cholera. And Short Round gives him a whole, protect your heart, Indy. Indy doesn't. But apparently this guy's magic is not immune to Indiana Jones punching him in the face. So he's Mola Ram is like starting to do that. Indy just grabs his hand and he like punches him in his face with his own hand. It's just like, oh, so this guy's power is just, as long as you can like he can leave his hand on your chest, that's fine. But if you punch him in the face, he's done for.
Maybe it is the power of love via Short Round and Indiana Jones's relationship.
Might be.
Indiana Jones got that dad strength.
We find out Indy does have those 3 stones, like we mentioned earlier. He starts invoking the name of Shiva. This causes the stones to burn through the satchel, kind of catch the satchel on fire. Mole Ram has one end of the satchel. Indy has the other end. One falls through. The next one falls through, and Mole Ram, being the greedy guy he is, grabs it. He was able to hold burning hearts earlier. Can't hold the hot stone, though. So the hot stone just sears his hand. He falls off. The scene is him falling down towards the ground in like this falling shot, like then the face of an alligator, and then back to Indy. You're like, Mole Ram is dead.
We get a third Wilhelm scream.
Indy does get one of the stones because he's got to bring it back to his village.
Not before the British Indian Army arrives and they defeat the remaining cultists because they have guns and the cultists have bows and arrows.
They just start popping them.
Shoot Indiana Jones with, and they just bounce off his body. Again, very Romancing the Stone-esque. They're saved. Indiana Jones, Willie, and Short Round, along with 100 children, return to Mayapur, where they are welcomed by Indian Doc Brown and hand over the last remaining stone to restore health, happiness, and freedom to the village. And as the villagers are reunited with their children, Indiana Jones and Willie Scott have one more little cheeky, you love me, you don't love me, come here, you, and they give each other a smooch.
She starts to storm off, and Indy wrangles her with his whip and just pulls her back like, you ain't going nowhere. There's no resolution for Short Round, though, which I thought would have been a nice touch for the movie because we know we don't see him again. So maybe Short Round stays with the villagers, with the kids, and Indy goes his own way. Like, that would have been nice.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's plot talk.
And that's Temple of Doom, directed by Steven Spielberg. Nick, do you have any nitpicks?
Nitpicks.
The geography. Like, is this temple on an active volcano? Does that matter for the movie? There's a lot of lava, and then there's just a lot of
super
mines.
hot down there.
It'd be really hot down there. And then you go out into this cliffside. I was confused. I don't understand where we are. India must be a wild place. What about you?
I have a couple technical ones. So first off, when Indy lights a match to illuminate the secret passage that leads to that bug chamber. First off, this match would only light his hand, but it acts as a giant lamp that lights the entire tunnel. Also, the light is being projected from behind Harrison Ford. So it's just a little technical, cheesy trope there. Secondly, Indiana stomping on the metal wheel as a brake would have not only incinerated his boots, but also his socks and his flesh.
I agree with you.
Just saying.
That one kind of bothered me.
Finally, the fire torch hypothesis. Short Round, out of instinct, just stabs Indiana Jones with the fire, breaks his trance, and like you said, is it the power of love or is it the fire? He tests out this theory again on the Maharaja. So after it was confirmed from that incident, why didn't they just start running around stabbing people with fire, poking people with torches, and break all the curses?
That's a great question. On top of that, I had the question of, they're around a lot of fire. Like, aren't people going to get burned and the trance is going to wear off? Like, you're around lava, there's fire shooting up all over the place. I mean, can a burn from a hot steam free you from this trance? I don't know. You're just around a lot of heat for heat to be the
deal
antagonist
breaker
to your curse.
Granted, Short Round was the only one who technically did that twice. So maybe he just didn't have time to explain that to Indiana. But I feel like if they figured that out, they could have utilized that a little bit more.
Yeah, I feel like the cultists should know. Fire. That's a no-go for people in the trance. We got to keep them away from that stuff.
Well, and Mola Ram was holding that guy's heart on fire.
Yeah, there's just a lot of fire around.
Is it specifically getting stabbed with fire? Is it like a
penetrating the skin
action?
with fire?
Yeah,
I don't know. So that maybe that goes to another nitpick that I have, which in a very big way is, like, we don't ever get explained any of this ritual. Where did it come from? Where do the thuggies come from? What is their god Kali? What does it want with the sacrifices? What powers does it grant? What are the limitations? What is this whole heart stealing thing? Like, where does that come from? So there's a lot of just, this is what it is.
All right, let's move on to talking points here. So my first talking point is that India wanted nothing to do with Indiana. And that was because of the representation of the Indian people and their culture. The local officials requested for script changes. One of the bigger ones being that the representation of the Thuggee cult with the human sacrifices, the demon worshiping. There was the child slavery, the corrupt government officials, evil spirit cults, all very similar to just generic Western stereotype voodoo ceremonies. And then they literally brought out that little stereotypical voodoo doll. It was just like a tough look, a tough sell for India. So they pivoted and they ended up filming in Sri Lanka. The first introduction to India is this rundown, poor famine village. And then they move into this high society of devil worshipping folks. So it's just like a double whammy of like, oh, okay, like we're either going to be poor or we're going to be really weird and creepy and evil. And ultimately just Harrison Ford being a white guy coming in, saving the day, freeing all these children. It's a little bit of not an easy sell for India.
It's weird because as I think about it, those are also like a lot of the stereotypes that we talked about it with the banquet scene, the food scene, are not stereotypes I necessarily associate to India.
Not stereotypes, but just bad representation.
Right. It was a little weird to me that they chose India as this place for all of these things to happen when it's just like an amalgamation of other culture stereotypes and you just put it onto India. I thought it was just a weird choice. It was a bunch of things I don't associate with India.
Yeah, no, exactly. It was just ignorant. It was just, hey, let's pick a filming location that we haven't done before, and we're going to insert all these elements that don't necessarily add up to the culture that we're filming in.
Right. And so they said, hey, people don't know much about India. We could get away with basically saying anything here.
Let's just say whatever we want. They're not going to know the difference.
I feel like that's what happened.
Backlash, this movie was banned in India upon initial release, has since been rescinded, but there it is. The final straw with producer Robert Watts was that India was not okay with them using the term Maharaja, which is just basically like the leader, the king.
I saw Prince. Yeah,
Prince, king, ruler. And that was the point that Robert Watts said, all right, we're not going to film in India. If they won't let us say this word, we can't even, the rest of this shit is not going to fly.
Yeah.
Pivoted to Sri Lanka. Another talking point I want to bring up. This is the major tipping point for the PG-13 rating from the MPAA. July 1st, 1984 was when PG-13 became an official rating. It seems like Temple of Doom and Gremlins were really just the final last straw within the last couple months before it became a rating. Temple came out in May of 1984. Gremlins came out in June of 1984, both rated PG, both received from audiences as not really being acceptable for kids. So Spielberg actually made a call to the MPAA and said, yo, we need a middle ground here. Like, this is ridiculous. I think it was all boiling up from a lot of previous movies. Mm-hmm. And Temple and Gremlins were just the tipping point.
I can see that.
They wanted to go for a darker feel, not too dark, so they threw in a lot of campy comedy. So I see you have a question here. Did it work?
In my opinion, it didn't work. I thought it just came off as really disingenuous and overly done.
George Lucas said, we want to go for a darker tone, kind of reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back, arguably the best of the original trilogy. And then with this, it just had the opposite effect. Just because you want to do something doesn't mean you're going to always 100% execute it how you envision it. I mean, it will give it kudos because it was so different from Raiders, but I felt like it didn't quite work because of all the negative representation of the local culture that they were filming in, on top of just the static story pacing and the location of where the plot actually takes place. Just because you want to go darker doesn't mean it's always going to work. And then when they throw in those goofball, corny jokes, like someone throws a sledgehammer and it lands on someone's head, or Indiana Jones grabs the boobs of a statue and it's the trapdoor mechanism, just feels a little bit unbalanced.
That's the great word for it, James, unbalanced. Spielberg and Lucas are such professionals. Would you consider this one of their sloppier works? And do you think that contributed to this maybe not landing?
100%. Because two things here. There's hard evidence of Steven Spielberg saying that this is his least favorite Indiana Jones, and both of them recounting this as not their best work. When Indiana Jones was originally pitched to Steven Spielberg from George Lucas, Lucas said, if you direct the first movie, I need you to direct 2 more for a trilogy. I have 3 story arcs mapped out. That was a load of crap because he did not have the next 2 mapped out. He was just focused on the first one. This movie was not as planned out from both of those guys as Raiders was. And it felt like they just said, hey, shot in the dark, let's go a different direction with Indiana Jones. Let's do something different. And it just flat out didn't work. George Lucas is very calculated and he knows what he wants to do. Spielberg is very spontaneous and likes all these, kind of like Sean Levy, kind of like, hey, let's do something wacky and do something crazy and let's have a good time. So for that point, the filming set was always relaxed and people were friends and it's a positive environment. But sometimes you can get a little bit too over your skis and you're too focused on having a good time and making it campy while trying to portray a dark story. It makes you overlook the technical stuff, like, is the correct language being spoken? Or how will this be perceived to a worldwide audience? Your enthusiasm kind of blinds you to the repercussions of your tunnel vision POV when filmmaking, which is what I think essentially happened here.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point because I did see a couple fun facts where the minecart chase scene were originally written into Raiders, and they had
And
to
the
scrap
raft.
them, and the raft.
So
Yeah.
this was like, it was almost an afterthought. They're like, all right, well,
Yeah,
Temple of Doom will get the sloppy seconds of the things we couldn't jam pack into Raiders.
exactly. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were a few other things throughout the movie that were recycled and not as original. James, I see here you have some popcornios.
A crowd favorite. We got popcornios. This is unseen cameos in the movie Temple of Doom. All of my popcornios are going to come from the flight arrangement scene. So Dan Aykroyd actually makes a cameo as kind of like the Sala type character who arranges the airplane ride for Indiana Jones, Short Round, and Willie. He doesn't have a close-up. It's really just a wide shot. And he says, all right, there's your plane. Like, best of luck. Safe travels, blah, blah, blah. It's Dan Aykroyd. In the background, we have Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Kathleen Kennedy, and her husband, Frank Marshall. You'll remember he doubled in last minute for the pilot in Raiders of the Lost Ark. They're all in the background wearing hats in the airport scene. And those are your popcornios for the Temple of Doom. Okay, Nick, mini awards. Let's hand out some accolades for Temple of Doom. What do you have for the best weapon?
I'm up in the air between the voodoo doll and Mole Ram's hand. And after we talked about Mole Ram's hand on the bridge and how you could just punch him in the face, I got to go with the voodoo doll.
Okay, let me throw something else your way. I was going to nominate Short Round's fire torch because it does break the spell.
It does.
So what do we think here? What would be a better, what weapon would you rather have in your hand? A voodoo doll or a torch?
Well, they're different fire torches, so it could just be any fire torch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
Or
the flaming kebab really should have.
Yeah.
Are we pivoting here?
Because that did one shot a guy.
I'm going to go with the flaming kebab.
Are we going to go flaming kebab?
Are you into that? Because I'm into that.
I'm into it.
All right. Flaming kebab. Best weapon of the movie.
Hell yeah.
All right, James. You got any standout pieces of shit?
I do. I think we're going to nominate Willie Scott because she just screams a lot. She complains a lot. She wants Indiana Jones to bang her, but doesn't want to admit it. She seems very shallow. When the antidote's being slipped around on the dance floor, she's going for the diamond. And then when we are introduced to the cult, Willie freaks out when Homeboy rips out the guy's heart, but then perks back up when she hears the word diamond. And she's like, what? Diamonds? Huh? The only cool thing she does is she saves Indiana Jones and Short Round from the bug crushing ceiling chamber. And at an hour, 39 minutes, and 11 seconds, she just straight levels a guy with a falcon punch on the minecart, which was pretty sick. But all around, pretty shallow character. Never wanted to be there. Was very reluctant to help out. Gotta say, she's my nominee for biggest piece of shit. What do you got?
Yeah, I think I have to go with Indy for this movie specifically.
Ooh.
You know, he abducts a woman, brings a small child into the heart of a murder cult. He's not very helpful. In fact, he gets them into situations that Short Round is the one who has to save them from. He's not a very good guy. He's a womanizer. He's very arrogant. He's kind of a piece of shit in this movie. I'm glad he gets better.
But he does dedicate himself to getting the stone to give it back to the village, which he ends up, and he saves all the children.
He unintentionally saves all the children.
No, because when he heard the screams, he went to go investigate and then threw a rock at Pat Roach.
But then got captured, controlled, almost killed.
That's not for being
Willie.
a piece of shit.
And if it wasn't for
because
Short
he
Round,
cared too much.
He would have blood on his hands. Yeah, well, you know, all I'm saying is he got them into some situations that he didn't need to get them into. And the only reason he went to go get the stone to help the village is because they needed to get him to Delhi. If someone else would have got him to Delhi, he would have kept walking.
That's fair. For the sake of the bracket, however.
For the sake of the bracket, we'll go Willie.
Oh, no. Okay.
Because we're going to watch more Indy movies, and we can't have Indy as a piece of shit because he's going to be a staple
he's
of
way
the
bigger
season.
Than the bracket. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I agree with you. He was a little bit shitty in this movie, but not ultimately.
Agreed.
Nick, I have a kind of like a new thing here. I need you to choose your fighter. Who was the most OP fighter in this movie? Who threw down the best? Because I have a couple nominees.
Easily short round.
Okay.
Easily short round for me. If you're talking about body size to strength ratio, I mean, this guy was taking on 3-4 grown men at a time. At the end, he brought out his martial arts skills and jumped up and kicked a guy in the chin, which is pretty badass. And then obviously, you know, the fire sticks. He was solving problems. He's not just strong; he's smart. And has a lot of resolve. He was not scared. So it was short round for me.
That's he was going to be one of my picks. The other one I was going to say was Mola Ram, because he is a very physically imposing man and he can literally just rip out hearts.
Yeah, but then he got punched in the face and it ruined his whole plan. We could also go with Pat Roach's character.
Yeah, again, he's an absolute unit. So shit, what do you do there?
Whew, that's tough because he couldn't beat Indy when Indy was getting beat up by a voodoo doll. So was he that big of a fighter? I got to go short round, man.
Going short round?
Mola Ram just had the heart thing. He never fought a man one-on-one. When he stole a heart from a guy who was tied up, and then when the real shit started, he just activated a trap door and bounced.
He went,
so he never went one-on-one with anybody.
No, and short round had a lot of sick moves. He like was doing Kihei Kwan actually has a black belt in Taekwondo.
I could tell, yeah.
He's taking on 3 guys at a time. He actually runs up. There's a shot in the minecart. It's one shot where he's running, a guy's chasing him. He ducks. The guy jumps over him and grabs onto the minecart. Kihei Kwan stands up and runs at the dude and runs up his back and then hops into the minecart. He's pulling out some sick shit. So I think short round is the best fighter in this movie, which brings me to my MVP of this movie. It's short round.
It's short round.
Kihei Kwan.
Yep, absolutely.
I was ready to give it to Harrison Ford just for, you know, pulling his back and like going to surgery and then coming back to work because he's a badass. But short rounds carried the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I'm 100% in on that. I was into short round. I mean, the second I saw MVP, I knew who it was. The character of short round in the movie and Kihei Kwan.
Yeah, a very high point for this movie.
Hit me with your worst scene of this movie.
Kind of hinted at it. I gotta go with the Pancake Palace dinner scene. It's just it's questionable racism here. It's like cornball jokes with Willie not digging the food. Also, they bring out a plate of snakes to the table, and the obese guy says, "Ooh, snake surprise!" And they're like, "What's the surprise?" And they slit open the snake, and like wet, multiple slick snakes slither out, and they're on the table, and people are just like grabbing it and just like, and like eating snakes, just shoving it down their throat. And I had a problem with this because Indiana Jones hates snakes, and he doesn't even bat an eye during this. In the scene before, in the jungle, a snake slithers down to Willie Scott's neck, and she thinks it's the elephant trunk and grabs it and just throws it off screen. And this triggers Indy to no end. He is like, oh my God, oh my God, a snake. One snake just slithered down. This dinner scene, a snake is brought out, split open, and more snakes grow out in a horrific scene. Indy doesn't say anything. I just thought it was a very boring scene, and it had a lot of just cringeworthy stuff and just cornball, gross out gags that just didn't land for me. How about you?
I would agree with you. That's the worst scene. I'll go different. My worst scene will be the minecart scene. It went on too long. It was like we were doing the same thing over and over again. Minecart's chasing you. You finally tip over that minecart. Oh, there's another minecart behind it. You can only fight a guy next to you on a minecart so many times until I go, okay, the minecart's done. This has been played out. We've been in a minecart chase for 10 minutes now, and I'm sick of it. I need the next thing to happen.
How about a best scene? Hit me with some positivity.
My best scene would probably be the first time that we see Mole Ram and the sacrifice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought it was done pretty. It's a good reveal of our big baddie. right? You're not expecting it. You're like, what's this guy going to do? Oh, he can rip a dude's heart out and set it on fire. The temple that they're in is very ornate. And I just thought it was really cool. I thought it was a really cool reveal for what's our big thing to overcome. We're going to go find the stone, but what's going to be standing in our way? And I was like, I better not be disappointed. And then you get the Mole Ram reveal and you're like, oh, that's some serious shit right there.
My best scene is a little bit more simplistic. It's the ceiling trap scene. I think there's a lot of nice little character moments in this scene, some peril that to be had. When Indiana Jones realizes there's a secondary trapdoor to escape from, he's like, on instinct, he sprints right towards it, but then recognizes, oh shit, short round's in here. So he turns around and realizes he can't get short round through the door with him. So he has to stay back behind. And it's just a classic Indiana Jones tropey scene, but it worked for me on this one. There's stress, there's race against the clock. It was probably one of the more Indiana Jones scenes we had in this movie that had the right amount of camp, the right amount of peril, and the right amount of set pieces and action and stakes at hand, because the rest of the movie is a little bit weird and different. There wasn't a lot of like puzzle solving or temple spelunking. It was really just dinner scenes, elephants, and fucked up rituals.
So that scene I actually did enjoy a lot too. And I think that was a good example of adding comedy to a stressful scene. We talked about how it didn't land mostly, but the interactions between Indy and Short Round in that room were really funny, because Short Round steps on the trap door that closes them in, and then Indy says, "Oh, go stand over on the wall over there."
It says,
And
leaning against the wall, don't touch anything.
Yeah, and he leans against this button that causes the ceiling to start coming down. And Indy's like, "What did you do?" And Short Round's like, "I did what you said. You said sit right here. I did this. What my fault?" And there's a few times like that throughout the movie, and it's funny. So like that was like, oh, it's a good use of comedy, but also stressful. So I agree, it's a good scene.
Okay, let's slap this with the sarcastic selling point. I'll go first. If you think you like Indiana Jones, get ready for Indian Jones.
I went ahead with Romancing the Stone with Devil Voodoo Magic.
Oh, okay. There we go. Mixing it up.
Yeah.
Final review. Fight.
Okay, let's see what the other guys are saying. Starting out with Rotten Tomatoes, the critics, 77% of the critics thought this was a good movie.
And the audience here had it at 82%. So just a little bit of letting you know where they stand. Raiders had 93% from the critics, 96% from the people. So we have a bit of a drop off here at 77 and 82%.
Moving over to Metacritic, a even bigger drop off here. We got a 57 from the critics, translates to a 5.7 on the popcorn scale. And referring to the Metacritic score from Raiders, they gave that one 86. So major drop off here.
Big drop off. The people of
30%.
Metacritic have it at a 7.7. So that's a pretty large, that's a 20-point difference on our scale from the critics to the people on Metacritic.
And now for our thugging out, but not bugging out, heart ripping out score from IMDb, a 7.5. Bugging, thugging, and rubbing all up on that IMDb score. They sure know how to not make a statement.
You can't go wrong playing it safe, my friend.
Yeah, we've heard what the other guys think. Let's see what we think. Hit me with that laughable log line.
Indiana Jones is back, or just got here, and he abducts a woman to take her on an adventure to a bloodthirsty death cult until they are saved by a small Asian boy. I gave this a 6.7. So for reference, I gave Raiders an 8.5. This gets a 6.7 for me. That lands it just about in the same area as a Blade. I understand it's hard to do a sequel, but Indiana Jones just really was out of character. And I know this is a prequel, so you can get away with some of that stuff to say, he's better in Raiders. He learned, he grew, but you still become attached to a character and what they stand for. And it was just very different. I thought it lacked adventure at some point, kind of the problem solving, the puzzle solving that we're used to from Indiana Jones. It's all in one location. We're used to him traveling to multiple places, getting some clues. The love story was pretty forced. You know what? I'm actually gonna change my score as I'm saying it out loud. I don't know
Oh.
why I would give this
Oh,
a
no.
6.7. I don't know why I'd
Oh,
give this a
no.
6.7 with all my issues with it.
Oh. Oh,
We're gonna
no.
go with yeah. We're
Oh,
gonna give it a 5. We're gonna give it a 5.9.
Oh.
I don't think it deserves the 6s. This puts it on the plane of Smoke Signals. It puts it on the plane of Cutthroat Island, which I think is actually
It's not that
about
bad.
right where it belongs.
Oh, no.
I think you lose some points when you have an established character and an established way of doing a movie and you just go the opposite direction. You just fail your execution. The whole love story thing, Marion had a great backstory. We don't know about it, but it was mysterious. They had a past. They did their thing. Willie just gets abducted and kind of Stockholm syndrome in a way, I guess I'd say. Not a well-developed story, not well-developed characters. We don't know what the magic is. We don't know why Mole Ram is the way he is. We're just forced to accept a lot of things. It's still Indy, but it's definitely lackluster, and it's the worst of the original trilogy for sure, in my view.
Wow. Okay. For a second there, I thought you were going to have a higher score than me, but I guess that won't be the case because my laughable log line and popcorn points are Indiana Jones kidnaps a famous singer and drags along an orphan kid into what is probably the closest you can physically get to the depths of hell in order to retrieve a stone and return it to a random village so that they won't be sad. 6.1 popcorn points. I was ready to hit this with like a flat 6, but short round and just Indiana Jones as characters, I'll give them a little bit of an edge. For all the reasons we discussed, definitely the weakest entry in the first 3 Indiana Jones movies. With Steven Spielberg and George Lucas even looking at this movie in retrospect, and they say, oh yeah, it wasn't really our best work. Spielberg was quoted to say, it's too dark, it's too subterranean and horrific. George Lucas said, it was supposed to be a dark film, just like Empire Strikes Back. Obviously, it did not land like Empire. And he says maybe it ended up being that way because I was going through a divorce and Steven Spielberg simultaneously was going through a breakup. So I think they were just in a weird, dark place with immature humor to kind of make up for the darkness with some light, but it just didn't outshine it. Spielberg said Temple of Doom was my least favorite of the bunch. Like Tim Burton's 1989's Batman, when a director comes out and says, yeah, I actually didn't like my movie, I got problems with that. Like that carries a lot of weight when the director is not happy. And it's not something to do with the studio, like we've covered with Juice and other movies that got shafted by studio notes by changing the ending. This is the director saying, I had full control because I'm Steven Spielberg and even I didn't like it. That's a big problem for me. So definitely low 6s. I can't slap it with the 5s because I do have the Fifth Element out of 5.9. Very Fifth Element adjacent with the love story. Very Romancing in the Stone adjacent with just the quality of storytelling. I was going to almost match it with a 6.2 for Romancing the Stone, but I'm going to bump it down from Romancing the Stone because at least Romancing the Stone was its own thing. You brought it up earlier, and I wrote this down before you even brought it up. This movie's pacing is so slow, and I feel like once they reach the palace, it's just at like a snail's pace because Raiders is like go 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 go. We're in South America. We go get an idol. There's a 10-minute boulder chase. Oh, we go back to the college. We see his professor life. 2 government guys come in. Here's the deal. Here's the mission. We're at Indiana's house. We're on a plane. We get the travel montage. We're in the Tibet or Nepal mountains. We go meet Marion. There's a whole bar fight. Oh, we're in Cairo. Now we're in the Cairo streets. Now we're in the secret map room. Oh, now we're in the Snake Temple. Now we're back up on the airstrip. Now we're on a convoy scene. Now we're in the ocean and we're on this boat. Now we're on a submarine. Now we're in this island. Now we're on the climax fight. This movie 39 minutes in is the dinner scene. And then that just starts an hour of on-screen time at this palace. Because at an hour or 35 minutes, that's when we get to the minecart scene. So I feel like we're just stuck in this house and it's fucked up lava basement. It does not feel like an Indiana Jones movie to me. There's no adventure. There's no road trip. There's like, I like it when they're outside and they're just in the soundstage for an hour, and it just bothers me because it's boring to me. You know what? I think it was what actually would have been a much better movie if Indiana Jones actually ripped out Willie Scott's heart. Because that would have woke me up and got me out of my seat.
I thought if she died,
holy
it would have been a
shit,
lot
they
better.
just ripped out Willie Scott's heart with his bare hand because he's cursed.
When they're talking about going through a divorce, I'm like, you don't show darkness
You rip
through
my
human
heart out.
sacrifice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I missed opportunity because I was just I mean, I think the ceiling trap scene, I was like, oh, like I'm actually kind of nervous for Indiana Jones, even though I know he's going to get out of this. All other scenes, I was never concerned. I just thought he's going to get out. They're going to be fine. Even if I know it's going to happen, at least trick me like it's not going to happen. The story, I guess, is about chasing fortune and glory, but like, I don't really like, I touched upon this with Raiders. I felt like you really had to dig with this for what the story was, but at least you had so much entertaining stuff on screen and crazy good filmmaking craft going to work that I let it slide. But this one, I don't even know what the story is. It's not even a struggle with chasing fame and glory or fortune and glory, because Indiana Jones says it's all about fortune and glory. And they mention it a couple other times. And at the end, Willie Scott says, oh, you didn't get your fortune and glory, huh? But Indiana Jones never set that up like he was out to get that. He just said that was what was at stake. And that was it. The story was flat. The plot played out flat. And I think for me, just the movie fell flat because it was all about bringing the stone back to this random ass village so that they wouldn't be sad.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. But yeah, that's our thoughts, man. That's Indiana Jones, Indian Jones, and the Temple of Dooms.
Indian Jones offending everybody in India. Okay, all right. Well, I think we have nothing else to say about Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I can't wait for The Last Crusade when we get there halfway through the year. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please follow us on Instagram and on YouTube at Just Play It Podcast. Please follow us on X at Just Play It Pod. We're out of here. Tune in next time when we watch a movie that was directed by someone who's super sick with it. And if you don't write it down, you might forget. Heading gone. And remember, if you are trying to be like a James Bond guy, just make sure you got a little orphaned Asian kid outside waiting in a convertible for a quick getaway. Otherwise, you might not make it out of Shanghai.
Steal a woman while you're at it. But apparently this guy's magic is not immune to Indiana Jones punching him in the face.
He was trying to get a diamond. He walks away with a complaining lady.